Every NHL team has a captain, but not every team has a real leader. Some guys wear the C just because they've been around the longest or score the most points. But these 20, they were different. These were the captains who changed the direction of their teams, stood tall when things fell apart, and made everyone around them better, on and off the ice. Being captain in the NHL isn't just about being the best player. It's about being the one who takes the blame when things go wrong, and the one everyone turns to when the pressure is at its highest. These captains didn't just lead their teams through easy wins, they led them through injuries, losing streaks, locker room drama, and heartbreaking defeats. And somehow, they kept everyone believing some of the greatest moments in hockey, overtime goals, cup parades, and possible comebacks, don't happen without these leaders holding the team together. Without their voice in the room and their fire on the ice, many of those iconic stories would never have come to be. They weren't just players, they were anchors when everything around them was falling apart. And they carried more than just the puck. They carried the expectations of teammates, coaches, fans, and entire cities. Some led while battling through personal pain, playing with broken ribs, fractured feet, or torn ligaments, and never backed down. But none ever hid from the weight of the C on their chest. And if you've ever been part of a team, any team, you know how hard it is to speak up when things get tough. Now imagine doing that in front of cameras, reporters, millions of fans, with the season on the line. That's what these captains did, and it's why they made this list. If this kind of leadership hits you deep, beyond just stats and highlights, tap like, hit subscribe, and stick around. These aren't just hockey stories, they're about heart. Brian Gionta didn't look like your typical NHL captain. He wasn't big, he wasn't loud, and he didn't play a flashy style, but he earned respect everywhere he went. Not because of size, but because of heart. Gionta made history when he became the first American-born captain of the Montreal Canadiens, a team known for its tradition, pressure, and French-speaking fan base. He never tried to be something he wasn't, he just outworked everybody. Whether it was blocking shots, killing penalties, or quietly leading by example, Gionta gave everything for his team. He didn't win a Stanley Cup as captain, but the way his teammates trusted him said everything. He proved that leadership isn't about height, it's about showing up every night no matter what. Shea Weber looked like a captain the moment he stepped on NHL ice. Big, strong, and serious. You didn't mess with him. In Nashville, he helped shape the identity of the franchise. Tough, physical, and hard to play against. Then he got traded to Montreal, where some fans doubted him at first, but that didn't last long. Weber wasn't the kind of leader who gave big speeches. He led with his actions, played through pain, took hits without flinching, and in 2021, he captained the Canadiens all the way to the Stanley Cup final, the team's best run in almost 30 years. He was playing through serious injuries the whole time and still refused to sit out. That's not just leadership, that's sacrifice. Henrik Zetterberg wasn't the loudest voice in Detroit's locker room, but he didn't need to be. He had something even better, trust. After Steve Yzerman and Nicklas Lidstrom, two of the greatest leaders in hockey, the Red Wings handed the C to Zetterberg, and he never let them down. He led with poise, skill, and smarts. He was the kind of player who always knew where to be, what to say, and how to lift the guys around him. In 2008, he won the Conn Smythe as playoff MVP when the Wings brought home the Stanley Cup. Shutting down Sidney Crosby and scoring clutch goals himself, Zetterberg never chased attention. He just delivered when it mattered most. In Vancouver, there's one name fans always say with love: Trevor Linden. He didn't win a Stanley Cup, but he earned something just as rare: lifelong respect. Linden became the Canucks captain at just 21 years old, and from that moment on, he carried the weight of an entire city on his shoulders. During the 1994 Stanley Cup final, he played through injuries and gave everything he had. His teammate, Kirk McLean, once said, "If you don't follow Trevor, you don't have a heartbeat." Even after stepping away from hockey, Linden came back to help run the team, because to Vancouver, he's more than just a player. He's a symbol of loyalty, leadership, and heart. Daniel Alfredsson was the face of the Ottawa Senators for over a decade. He wasn't just their captain, he was the team. Drafted in the 6th round, he wasn't expected to be a star, but by the time he left, he was the franchise leader in points, games played, and leadership moments that fans still talk about. He led Ottawa to the 2007 Stanley Cup final and was known for his calm, steady presence, even when the team was struggling. But Alfredsson also had fire. He scored big goals, stood up for teammates, and once shot a puck at Scott Niedermayer out of frustration, proving that even the quiet ones have an edge. Ottawa didn't win a cup, but Alfredsson gave them an identity, and that's what great captains do. George Armstrong was called the Chief, and in Toronto, he was more than just a captain. He was the soul of the Maple Leafs during their last real dynasty. He wore the C for over a decade and led the Leafs to 4 Stanley Cups. including their last one in 1967. That was a long time ago, but Armstrong is still remembered like it was yesterday. He didn't score flashy goals or make highlight reels. He just did the right thing every single shift. Teammates trusted him, coaches leaned on him, and fans loved him. He was calm, humble, and never made it about himself. When he scored the empty netter to seal the '67 Cup, it felt perfect, the quiet leader finishing the job the right way. Dave Keon wasn't just one of the best players of his time, he was the heart of the Maple Leafs in the 1960s. As captain, he was quick, smart, and dependable in every part of the game. But what really stood out was his calm under pressure. He never panicked, and in the playoffs, he was always at his best. In the 1967 Cup run, Keon didn't just play well, he dominated. He won the Conn Smythe Trophy and made big plays in the biggest moments. Even when things got rocky between him and team management later on, Leafs fans never turned their backs on him. They knew what he gave them. And when he finally returned to Toronto after decades away, the standing ovation lasted minutes. Before he was captain, Rocket Richard was already a legend. The first player to score 50 goals in 50 games, and the man who lit up every arena he entered. But in his final years, when he finally wore the C, he brought something deeper: respect, fire, and fearlessness. Even as an older player, opponents still feared him, and teammates followed him. He played like every shift mattered because to him, it did. When Richard retired in 1960, the crowd in Montreal cried. Grown men were in tears, and when he passed away years later, over 100,000 people lined up to say goodbye. Being captain was just a title, but for Rocket, being a leader was who he always was. Nicklas Lidstrom was known as the perfect human, and that wasn't just about his skill. It was about how he carried himself every single day. He took over as captain after Steve Yzerman, which should have been impossible, but Lidstrom made it look easy, because that's what he did with everything. He wasn't loud, he didn't need to be, he let his game speak, and it spoke clearly. Smart plays, right decisions, calm under pressure. In 2008, he became the first European-born captain to win a Stanley Cup, leading Detroit with quiet dominance. He showed that you don't have to yell to lead. Sometimes being steady and trusted is enough to carry a team to greatness. Before the Islanders became a dynasty, they needed someone to set the tone. That someone was Denis Potvin. He became captain at 22 and helped turn a young, talented team into a 4-time Stanley Cup winning powerhouse. He wasn't just along for the ride, he was leading it from the front. Potvin was a hard-hitting, smart defenseman who played with confidence and edge. He didn't back down from anyone, and his team followed his lead. In 1980, when the Islanders won their first cup, it was Potvin who set the tone with his physical play and presence. He was never flashy off the ice, but on it, he was a force that pushed one of the greatest teams in NHL history to keep winning. Ray Bourque was the captain of the Boston Bruins for 15 years. He didn't yell, he didn't show off. He just played with everything he had. Every shift, every game, every season. He was steady, smart, and incredibly respected. But there was always one thing missing: a Stanley Cup. Late in his career, he was traded to Colorado. It was emotional, not just for Bourque, but for Boston fans too. Everyone knew he deserved one last shot, and in 2001, after over 20 years in the league, he finally lifted the cup. When Joe Sakic handed it to him without a word, it said everything. Bourque's moment wasn't just a win, and it was a reward for a lifetime of quiet leadership. If you played against Scott Stevens, you knew two things: don't skate with your head down, and don't expect mercy. He was one of the most feared captains in NHL history, but what made Stevens special wasn't just the big hits, it was the standard he set. He led by intensity. If you didn't give full effort, you didn't belong on his team. He helped turn the Devils into a 3-time cup-winning group, and his leadership came in how he played: hard, smart, and unshakable. His hit on Eric Lynn draws in the 2000 playoffs is still talked about today, not because it was brutal, but because it symbolized what Stevens stood for: total commitment. Jonathan Toews was just 20 years old when the Blackhawks made him captain, and it turned out to be one of the smartest moves in team history. He wasn't the loudest guy in the room, but he had something you couldn't teach: presence. You just felt it when he was on the ice. He led Chicago to 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years and earned the nickname Captain Serious because of how focused and driven he was. But he wasn't robotic. He cared. He lifted his teammates. He faced the media after tough losses. And even when health issues slowed him down later in his career, his leadership never faded. Toews made winning feel normal in Chicago, and that's no small thing. At 6'9", Zdeno Chara was the tallest player to ever play in the NHL. But it wasn't just his size that made him a great captain. It was his strength of character. In Boston, he led the Bruins with discipline, focus, and heart. In the 2019 Stanley Cup final, Chara took a puck to the face, broke his jaw, and still came back to play. He could barely talk, had his jaw wired shut, but he put on the gear and got back on the ice. Not because he had to, because he wanted to be there for his team. That kind of toughness and loyalty isn't just rare, it's unforgettable. Everyone knows Gretzky for his records, the goals, the assists, the points no one will ever touch. But what people sometimes forget is that he was also a calm, effective captain who led through confidence and care. With the Oilers, he helped build a dynasty, not just by scoring but by lifting up teammates. He made guys believe they could be great. He made hockey fun, fast, and dangerous in a new way. And even after being traded to LA, he helped grow the game in places that had barely heard of it. Gretzky didn't bark orders, he inspired. And sometimes, that's the most powerful kind of leadership. Sidney Crosby didn't just live up to the hype, he carried it and a franchise. Named captain at just 19 years old, he was the youngest full-time captain in NHL history at the time. But from the start, he acted like a veteran. Crosby was the kind of player who didn't just play hard. He did everything the right way, every single day. He led the Penguins to 3 Stanley Cups, battled through serious injuries, and still came back better each time. He mentored younger players, answered tough questions after losses, and kept his ego out of it. Crosby doesn't chase attention, he earns respect. And even now, he's still setting the standard for what a captain should be. Joe Sakic wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, but when things got tense, all eyes went to him, and he delivered. He led the Avalanche to 2 Stanley Cups and was known for being ice cold in the clutch. You could count on him to show up when it mattered most. One moment says it all. In 2001, after winning the Cup, Sakic didn't lift it first, right? He handed it to Ray Bourque, who had waited 22 years for that moment. He knew what it meant. That single gesture told you everything about his leadership. Selfless, humble, and full of class. That's not just a great player, that's a great person. Jean Beliveau was the kind of captain who made you stand taller just by being near him. He won 10 Stanley Cups as a player, and 5 of those while wearing the C. But it wasn't just the trophies that made him great. It was his dignity, his calm presence, and the way everyone, teammates, opponents, even fans, looked up to him. He carried himself like a true gentleman. But on the ice, he was all business, skilled, tough, and unshakable. When he retired, the Canadiens didn't just lose a captain, they lost a symbol. Beliveau didn't just lead a team, he set the gold standard for leadership in hockey. Steve Yzerman was a superstar who became a captain, then turned into a legend. He wore the C in Detroit for 20 seasons, the longest in NHL history. But early on, he was mostly known for scoring goals. What changed everything was how he chose to lead. Yzerman transformed his game to focus on defense, effort, and responsibility, all for the good of the team, and it worked. He led the Red Wings to 3 Stanley Cups, turned Detroit into a powerhouse, and earned total trust from everyone around him. The way he evolved as a leader, that's what made him one of the greatest captains the game has ever seen. Mark Messier didn't just wear the C, he owned it. He was tough, vocal, intense, and absolutely fearless. He won 6 Stanley Cups, including 5 with the Oilers and 1 with the Rangers. But the one in New York is the stuff of legend. In 1994, the Rangers were facing elimination. Messier guaranteed a win, and then scored a hat trick to back it up. That's not just confidence, that's delivering when everything is on the line. Teammates say he could walk into a room and instantly change the energy. Fans say he brought hope back to New York. Mark Messier didn't just lead, he willed teams to win, that's why he's number 1. If these captains reminded you why you love the game, if their leadership made you feel something, then hit that like button and subscribe. Because hockey isn't just about goals and trophies, it's about heart, sacrifice, and the ones who carried it all.